Morning folks, how are you guys doing today? Hope all's going well for you, you're having a constructive week. So today's question, how agile are you? Don't worry, you don't need to submit a video proving that you can touch your toes or anything crazy like that. It's more project management question really. There's two typical schools of thought when it comes to project management. You can either run a project in an agile manner, where you're embracing uncertainty and expecting constant change and wanting to adapt to that quickly and fast and pivot and make decisions in real time or near real time. Or you take a waterfall approach where a project is highly predictable, it's been done a million times before, it'll be done a million times again, largely similar, so it's much easier to predict how long it's going to take, the stages through which you're going to go, what your milestones will be, what the end result will be, have all the specifications clear in your head from day one, etc. And historically, most projects will run on a waterfall basis. In real terms, the agile methodology is fairly new within the last maybe 10 or 15 years. And it came about largely in the world of technology, particularly startups. Now, I span two different worlds because I'm a software engineer. I'm working on a startup currently, which is all new and uncertain, and I'm also a property investor, which, you know, as you guys know, it has been around a long time, so it's much more predictable. But what's interesting this year particularly is the amount of uncertainty and change that's been introduced to the property investment landscape that we're not as accustomed to as I am in my world when I've got my technology hat on, where everything's uncertain all the time and you're constantly changing and adapting. So what I try to do is actually combine the best of both and arrive at something that's optimal. And I thought I'd share some of my thoughts with you guys and look to hear yours in return. When it comes to working with builders and doing a renovation project, for example, or deciding whether to buy, you know, that's a good example. Now, typically, you could sit down before the project was due to start, write out a really clear specification of works to say, this renovation is going to take 3 months. We're going to use exactly these shower trays, exactly that colour. For the paintwork, exactly this type of door. We're going to use this build team. Now, that's all good, right? And in terms of systemizing and scaling, that's great because you can get a project done without actually having to give much creative input because you've already defined a set of guidelines that you can adhere to, and your builders will be able to get on with it without unnecessary communication and meetings and all the rest of it. So on the one hand, taking a waterfall approach to a renovation project is good, particularly if you're looking to source development finance, where you're going to have to meet certain milestones at inspection time as well. So that's fine. But my experience has taught me that it's good to introduce some agile thinking into this process as well, where possible. Reason being, a few years ago, I worked on a project, 3-bedroom semi to HMO. It's like a 50 grand refurbishment job. I was working with a new builder, Gary, for the first time, and I sat down pretty much on my own and I worked through a specification of works in massive detail, every room, the whole shebang. And the project ran very smoothly. The house is still functional and full today, all good. But I think it's fair to say that the end result of that project was quite a functional house. It wasn't especially well designed because I was the one giving all of that input and I'd specified everything very, very clearly up front. A year ago, we did another project in exactly the same part of town, 5 minutes down the road, same end result, but we took a much more agile approach to that project. We said, okay, it'll be kind of like the last one in a lot of ways, but my wife Megan was involved giving creative direction to the whole thing. She has a natural flair and passion for interior design and creative thinking, and my builder and she worked very closely together, collaborating on ideas for, different feature walls and different styles in the kitchen, and creating a better user experience for the tenants by putting things like electrical appliances to the left and right in their bed so they could charge their phones easily, all these little things. And what actually happened is that project, it played out in a much more agile way because every week there was a new idea coming up as to how we could improve things and how we could enhance it. And so it kind of rolled on in this creative, natural fashion, and the end result was far, far superior to the previous project that I'd done, having given all the direction and written down all the specifications very clearly, just because it was a lot more open to collaborative ideas and idea generation, and everything that resulted was fantastic. So I think that's the benefit of being open-minded, not giving a rigid set of specifications, but opening it up once you've established a high degree of trust with the people you're working with, because better things result. And another example more recently, obviously the economy in the UK has been in turmoil and constant flux as a result of COVID recently. And we've been working on a project at the moment. I think there are some before and after photos and videos to come once the designs are a bit further forward and the house is nearing completion. But this is a project that's been going on for a while. We're renovating a house again, and we were deciding which specification to do it to, because when we did it initially, the plan was to rent the property once it was finished. So of course, if you've got renting in your mind, you're kind of designing things to a certain specification with an end user in mind. Then it became apparent that it could be a fantastic time to sell in light of the boom we're experiencing currently in property prices, and the fact that that's probably not going to last very long with the furlough schemes coming to an end and a recession about to bite. So for a couple of weeks we were planning to sell it. Then I had a conversation with my accountant and realised that actually the capital gains tax that would be payable might make a sale less attractive as an option. So that's another factor that's been introduced, and we're now looking at it and saying, actually, rather than renting or selling, we think we'll live here for a period of time. So we're introducing a few more changes to make the house really, really beautiful and high-end in specifications so that we can enjoy it for ourselves. So within the course of 6 months, in an industry where we're not used to a huge amount of change, we've pivoted in 3 different directions as a result of market factors beyond our control that have influenced decision-making. And by retaining a high degree of agility and having that built into the culture and standard operating practice of our team, we were able to make quick changes with minimal implication to result in better outcomes. And if we'd have just taken a waterfall approach to this project from, let's say March of this year, I mean, if we had predicted 7 months into the future or 6 months into the future how things were going to play out, it would have been impossible, because so much has changed in that 6 months. And if you had just stuck to your guns and said, no, this is the plan, we're sticking with it, we're not making changes now, I think that, you know, the outcome would have been suboptimal at best. So I guess, look, take an approach of systemizing your business where you can. Have defaults, have specifications, have standard operating practice that mean if you're running multiple projects concurrently, they can continue uninterrupted without requiring constant communication, decision making and change. But retain the agile retain the ability to make changes quickly, often, and at very short notice, because that means you can pivot, you can adapt to the change. It's kind of like riding a changing wave all the time. So if you're able to do that and people are aware that changes may take place and they embrace it and they're open to it because you realise that there's going to be a better end result that comes from that, then I would suggest your business is stronger, it's more durable, it's going to do better over time, it's going to outperform competitors who are a bit more resistant to change and stuck in their ways. So all things to think about, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you take the waterfall, highly systemized approach? Do you take an agile, highly flexible approach? Do you try to combine both? What's worked best for you? Any ideas that you have, I'd love to hear. And I wish you a very, very lovely day ahead. Okay, bye-bye.